academic vocabulary, and I teach English. I'm Amanda Bannister, so this is something that I'm familiar with, but for some departments, you might be asking yourself, why should I teach vocabulary? So we're going to start there. Okay? Specifically academic vocabulary. So we are referencing Marzano throughout our presentation as a guru, and mainly out of this book, Vocabulary for the Common Core. So that's the reference to which we'll be talking today. And so the Common Core standards present unique demands on the breadth and depth of a student's vocabulary knowledge. So that's why we all need to own it and teach it, because our assessments are using these terms and these standards are using these terms, and so before we can ask students to perform, they need to know what they're supposed to do to perform. And furthermore, according to numerous studies, a student whose teacher systematically, and systematically is the emphasis there, taught academic vocabulary gained 20 percentile points on academic tests. So if a student performed in the 50th percentile, he could possibly gain to the 70th percentile. And then our final source of why teach vocabulary is Marzano in his own words.
Did you know that improving students' vocabulary has been shown to not only help reading skills, but also boost math performance as well? In fact, a recent study found that a number of math students performed poorly on tests simply because they didn't understand the wording of questions. By developing a program to help them learn the terminology, teachers could help students' test scores improve dramatically. Isn't it time to remove the barriers to the successful education of our students? Because learning beyond boundaries means helping students build academic vocabulary.
So that just re-emphasizes the importance of teaching these academic vocabulary terms across the content areas so that a student is capable of answering, well, maybe not capable, but is able, because they actually know what they're supposed to do before we ask them to do a task. They understand what it is.
Okay, so Marzano divides academic vocabulary terms into 3 terms: Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 1 is basic conversation, so it's stuff that you hear out on in the quad, but they're talking to their regular conversations. Tier 2 is the general academic words. It's academic vocabulary that we all use across the board. We all use describe and analyze and those kind of terms. That's the Tier 2 that we're talking about. And Tier 3 is the domain-specific words. So like for math, it would be quadratic equation. You're probably not going to use that in your language arts class. So our focus is to make sure that our kids understand the Tier 2 words in and out, so that way they'll be more successful on tests and be more successful in Common Core. Just as a side note, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 do not line up with DOK 1, DOK 2, DOK 3, DOK 4, okay? Some of the words overlap, and DOK is depth of knowledge for some. So our wheel of knowledge, the wheel of DOK number or terms are not the same as the tiers here. And when you see this, doesn't this make you hungry looking at the cake? So that's why Amanda and I baked little cupcakes for you. So enjoy that while you're completely excited about.
And I'm going to step in 1 second. So we're focusing on general academic words, academic vocabulary, and we're going to give you some strategies to teach academic vocabulary, but we are not at all indicating that you should not still teach Tier 3 domain specific. This is just teach Tier 2 as you teach Tier 3, and it applies to your curriculum.
Yes. Okay? And we're not supposed to assume that students know Tier 2 words. We're just we have to make sure that they understand them as well. So, yeah. So Tier 2 words, here's a list. A Wordle, is that what you call it? Wordle. Yeah, a Wordle list of all the Tier 2 words. Now, it's kind of not that exciting to read. It's fun to look at, though, so that's why it's this way. You'll be receiving a copy of a list in alphabetical order and numbered, probably, of all of the Tier 2 words. Does anyone want to take a guess on as to how many there are?
82.
141.
Over 200.
Over 200.
Right there?
Mm-hmm. And we are asked to put a focus on this, to put a focus on our Tier 2 academic vocabulary. So that's our goal this year, not to assume students know it, is to make sure that we explicitly teach the words in context as they arrive in our curriculum.
Right. So if I'm giving a prompt in my class, my English class, and it says analyze and describe, before I can ask the student to answer that, I need to make sure they know what that means. And so in addition to it, before I give the prompt, I'll teach these academic words, and you all will teach them as they appear in your curriculum. Okay. Okay. And so we're going to give you a 6-step process to systematic vocabulary instruction. It's Marzano's, so it's respected and founded. But I want to make sure that I start by telling you you would not attempt to do all 6 steps in one class sitting. Okay, so steps 1 through 3 likely could be completed in one class period, and then maybe a couple days later you do step 4, maybe a week later you do step 5, and maybe even 2 weeks later you do step 6, because step 6 is games involving the terms, so you definitely can't do games with one term. Okay? Yes?
Okay, so do you want every teacher in every class teaching every term as part of their curriculum at the beginning of the school year, or as the words come up in your class, just reteach that word as it comes up in your class?
Your second scenario
Okay.
of as it appears, teach the term.
Okay.
Okay? This is not in the packet. What I'm going to do is have administration put it on the shared drive, and I also am going to email all of the documents in one email so you can save that or delete it when you receive it. Okay? So, systematically teaching. Okay? You first would give the students a description and definition of the word, and I'm going to differentiate description and definition in a moment. Then you would ask the students to verbally rephrase the description and write an original sentence using the word appropriately, using the word used with context clues so that they know what the word means. Third, you'd ask the students to construct a picture, symbol, or graphic of the term. This is something that I haven't been doing in my classroom, but I've seen the special education department using it, and that really supports those students, so I know it's founded on our campus with experience as being successful, as well as Marzano as the guru. 4, you'd engage students in activities to help them add knowledge of the word. 5, discuss the term with one another, the students would. And 6, play games. And so the reason you do so many different things is that we don't want a student just to memorize the term, regurgitate it, forget it. But we want them to actually digest the word on multiple occasions so that they own it. Okay? And it would be great if they saw the word in history, English, math, and health. Because then they would really see the power of the word, and that it's extremely important for their success academically, as well as all those variety of contexts. We're all going to give different descriptions of it, so that holds more meaning for the student.
Okay, so you know how we like forms, right? Everybody likes a good form. Okay.
Organization.
Exactly. This is just one example. Okay, this is not the end-all be-all. This is what we have to do. We just wanted to be able to provide an example of what you could use. Okay. This is a hybrid combination of Marzano's ideas and Abbott's strategies. Okay. So we kind of put it together, and Amanda made this tiny graphic organizer, so you can either put 3 to a sheet if you wanted to do vocabulary words that way and have it 3 to a sheet, or if you're doing an interactive notebook, you can cut them out and glue them into the notebook. So there's lots of different options here. This is not meant to be filled out completely in one day. It's not meant to be completely filled out by themselves, okay? This is a teacher-directed activity. So you can start by filling it out with them, and then maybe later on in the year you could have them work collaboratively in groups, but this is not meant to be, here's a list of 20 words, here's a list of 20 graphic organizers, make it come together, okay? This is something that they're gonna need support with. Yeah, that's all I have to cover on that side.
Okay, so we are going to ask you for steps 1 through 4 to take the role of the student. And so I gave you a copy of the graphic organizer, and we're asking you to participate in this as we would ask our student to. So play along nicely, please. So the word we chose, which is one of the academic vocabulary words, is conjecture. So go ahead and write in conjecture.
It's one of those words that you never really actually define, you know?
And we're going to talk about it today used as a noun. Okay, don't write down the meaning yet, because you might change your mind. This is the dictionary definition of conjecture. A proposition before it has been proved or disproved. Okay, it actually is a decent dictionary definition, but oftentimes when you look a word up in the dictionary, it holds no meaning for you because a dictionary's intention is to use the least amount of space to define a word. Okay, so that's the definition, but remember I told you I would give my students a description. Okay, so you might want to write down my description of the word because it holds more meaning for you, which is something that I think is true, but I am not certain. Something that I think is true, but I am not certain. Okay, so if you like that definition better, by all means use it. But if you like my description better, then use that. Sure. And Abby on hers wrote down both. Even better. Okay, so you don't have to do that, and you don't have to ask the students to do both. It is important to write down that it's a noun, because when we ask you to use it in a sentence, you'll want to know how to use it.
We're getting good at the pushing the right buttons this time. Okay. All right, so another part, the next part is to restate the word. Making sure they're able to pronounce the word correctly. Now, the English department, from what I hear, has really exciting ways of doing this. They've clapped, like with the syllables, I'm guessing. I'm not going to demonstrate because I'm not. Yeah, sure, there we go. Okay. So if you are interested in that technique, you can talk to Emily Cavolt. Apparently, she is the queen of clapping. So very exciting. Making sure that they understand how to pronounce the word is half the battle. At least for some of our math terms too. I'm sure you have that in your subject area as well. The next part is to make an original sentence. So making a sentence that puts it into context. So what I'd like for you to do is I'm going to give you about 20 seconds right now, and I'd like for you to come up with an original sentence with the word conjecture in it. Ready, set, go.
And we put you intentionally in a group, so if you need to collaborate and have the same sentence, go.
Yes.
We should collaborate with each other.
Okay, so a noun, it is.
Oh, there you go.
My conjecture.
What are you using?
Okay.
It's giving you the answer.
Do you need some more time?
Yes.
My conjecture about my husband's behavior was mistaken.
But that would be stupid.
Okay, if I could have you guys, while writing, listening maybe? It's not as easy as it looks or it sounds, right? Conjecture is not an easy word to put in context. So would anybody like to share their sentence? Anybody have a super awesome sentence? Okay, so we'll share ours.
I'll share.
Oh, go ahead.
It's not maybe very good, but I'll share it anyway.
Thank you.
I'm willing. My conjecture about my son's behavior was mistaken.
Okay, good. Did you want to share what?
The conjecture is that the CIA killed Kennedy.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so we made one. It's what's your conjecture, or what is your conjecture? What is the conjecture of what happens if we blend O2 and oxygen? I don't know. We were trying to make it. Oh.
Did we mention?
Okay, I can fix that for next session. Thank you. All right, so putting a sentence, making it real to them is the goal. We were trying our best. Okay. Okay.
Conjecture is sometimes used as a verb too, Melanie.
Okay,
So
yes.
Yes, we just are using it as a noun. Yeah. Okay. So that's 1, 2, and 3, and as we said, you may be able to do that, in one period. You can see that that would not take tremendous amount of your class period to do. And so the next one, sorry, I see these guys. Yep, thank you, is, and I'm going to ask you to play along. Can you draw an illustration, a graphic, a symbol of what conjecture means? And if you like colors, there are markers in the back, otherwise you're free to use whatever is in your hand. I like it. Something that visually captures the meaning of conjecture.
Sometimes you may have to put your students' mind at ease that pictures don't have to be perfect. Stick figures are good.
Check mark in front of it.
I tried. I fixed it.
What you wrote makes more sense than what
Okay. So here is my illustration of a possible question that two students are at a lab table and they want to know what, I'm going to make a conjecture about adding these two chemicals. Maybe it'll produce a gas. Okay, does anybody, are we okay? You guys good? Yeah, thank you.
And so you might ask your students, as you're getting familiar with this, collaborate on this, maybe ask a student to share, but we think a really important thing to do when you're first starting to ask students to draw is draw yourself and take the pressure off of them. Because when I draw for my students, they tell me, that is horrible. That's the worst drawing of the Statue of Liberty I've ever seen. And I say, yes, it is, but it holds a lot of meaning for me. I know exactly what I'm saying there, so it's good. Okay, that way they, don't feel like it needs to be an art project for them.
And if they really, really hate drawing, you could possibly turn it into a homework assignment, ask them to find pictures online, print it, copy and paste it into there if that makes it more meaningful. If it makes it more meaningful for them. There we go. Okay, so we need to do an engaging activity now with the words. And we haven't filled in every single blank yet, correct? We still have 2 left. So there are many different ways that you could fill in those extra 2 blanks. Here is a list of activities that you will be getting this PowerPoint and the list of activities and the descriptions of the activities. So you can use a variety of things, but one of the ones that we want to use is an analogy, because analogies would be awesome to find out synonyms and antonyms, right? So, and since we only have 1 word, it kind of limits our games, our options. So if you want to hit the space bar. Okay, so this is an analogy. A baby is to an infant as conjecture is to. Go ahead and you can talk amongst your groups and see if you can fill in the blank. Okay. Does anybody want to share their term?
Fergie does.
Okay.
Oh, hypothesis.
Okay, that's good. Anybody else have a different term?
Theory.
Okay, that works. All right, so those would be the words that you would want to fill in. Like if you were doing a shout out or a popcorn with your students, you can have them list the synonyms they want. So they could be a variety of them. You could also do a similar thing with the antonyms, and you can have them do an analogy and then do a share out to fill in the antonyms. But we're just going to give them to you because we're hard pressed for time. Questions, comments, or concerns so far?
Okay. So at this point, you have successfully completed the organizer. If you have an interactive notebook, it would be great to paste that into it. Or if you're doing more than 1 term, in my class I often work with maybe 10 terms, and so I could have them put their worksheet with the graphic organizer, multiple organizers on 1 sheet into their binder. Okay. The next step, 5 and 6, we're going to come out of student-teacher mode and just talk to you teacher to teacher. okay? Mainly because these work best when you have more than one word, okay? Since we only have one word that we're using right now, these activities are limiting to what you can do. So ideas for the classroom for discussion is role cards, and that's where you have students working in groups and each student has a different role. You might have an etymology expert, you might have, you know, a sentence expert, and so they work collaboratively with the words. You could do paired thinking, and that really can be as simple as exchange graphic organizers. Let me see what you did, you see what I did, and maybe we can give one, take one strategy of ideas if I was misled on the definition or was using it inappropriately. Inside-outside circle is where you have the class stand in two circles facing each other, and let's say you have 10 words, you might ask them to use conjecture in a sentence. And so they share, and then you say, okay, outside circle, rotate once to the left, and then give them a new task, okay? The biggest thing is you want them discussing the words, okay? Just another opportunity for them to get familiar with the word. And we put up others because I'm certain that there are other strategies that you're already employing in your classrooms that would work. Does anybody have one that, oh yeah, I do this and it's fantastic? Okay. And again, these strategies with their descriptions will be emailed to you as well to put on the share drive. Okay.
Okay, so step 6 is the game portion. So you can do lots. There are, obviously I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but there are many, many different options that we have descriptions for, and that would be awesome to like try to incorporate into your new vocabulary room or class. Are there any other ones that you guys do that are super cool that we'd like to share? Does anybody do anything super fun with vocabulary?
Can I ask you a question? I don't have a great one to share, but are there any up here that you guys saw this summer or have used in the classroom? Because I've not heard of most of these, so I wasn't sure if there was maybe one or two that you know.
I have not used any of these. I use different ones, but I'm excited to try new ones too, especially in our other classes with the different.
I've used vocabulary charades in my classroom where I have the student, I assign them a word, and usually I assign them multiple words and they're in groups of 3, and then I say you need to, you know, silently act out the meaning of this word, and the students all have the bank, and so then they guess what word they're using, so they like that because it's interactive.
And what Amanda's students like best about that is that she always starts by doing an example.
Yeah.
So like the word maelstrom is like this horrible, horrific storm. So she runs around the room.
Right.
They just always tell stories. So there's a lot of buy-in on that one.
Really animated. But again, on this, you know, I know that like, I want to know what word whistle is. I don't really know that one. And definition, definition, I like that. But all of these are in the Marzano, and I scanned them and I'll email them to you with the description of how to use them and which level they're best suited for. All of these are best suited for high school, middle school. I eliminated the others. So I haven't tried all of them. I've had the most success with the charades. Any other?
I don't think that would work, but in French sometimes I would have a dice with all the letters of the alphabet, and I throw it, and whatever letter comes out, they have such an amount of time to find how many words they can, starting with that letter. And at a higher level, they have to create in groups a little paragraph using as many words as they can for that. That's something that's cool.
Yeah. I absolutely think that would work. Yeah, that sounds a little bit like create a category might fit with that. You know, that might be the strategy they were going for with that too. So that's the end of the 6-step process. The biggest thing is you can use these 6 steps of vocabulary instruction for any vocabulary. It doesn't have to be solely for academic vocabulary, but systematically teaching the word and having the students exposed to it in multiple settings and on multiple occasions is going to help the student to internalize the word and actually be able to use it in their vocabulary, their personal dictionary. And so, you know, we were just giving you a suggested way to systematically teach any vocabulary and hopefully impressing upon you the need to teach academic vocabulary in your classroom and not assume the students know what that means, because as Marzano said, sometimes students fail a test simply because they don't know what they're being asked to do. Ta-da. Thank you.